oh, man, I think I missed the cool little blinking sleeper sound that starts off a draft. That's okay. That's my bad. User error. McCaffrey goes first. I picked the 1.3 draft position tonight just because I keep bouncing around to different spots. So that's what I did tonight. And I think I'm going to land CD Lamb. Those wide receivers at the beginning, this is full PPR, so keep in mind the settings. I do think Lamb, like before you get into the tier of running back, let's see how Sleeper has it on default. Before you get into like Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, like you could take some of the running back names above these wide receivers if you wanted to. But I'm CD Lamb, I think. As long as he signs, as long as Jerry Jones gets that situation figured out, I think that's the way to go. And that is the way that I will go here at the 1.3. I'll keep it relatively simple. Make my pick early in the clock. Let me know in the comments if you have anything you want to talk about, any questions about fantasy strategy. We'll do a lot of trade strategy kind of stuff on the channel as we go along this season. So if you're just finding out about us, that's because it's pretty new. Go ahead and drop a subscription. We're hoping to get to 1,000 before, certainly before next weekend, but hopefully within the next couple of days, which has been a grind to try and get it up. That came out wrong. Amon-Ra St. Brown goes number 4. Justin Jefferson number 5. We do have 1 minute on the clock, but if try to make those picks as quickly as you can. But I understand. We'll talk our way through some of these picks as time goes on. Making sure I'm not messing up the settings too bad. I kind of shifted the viewership on the screen there. Jamar Chase goes. So far, so good in terms of the chalk. I'm very curious to see if anybody in full PPR would go with one of these two running backs ahead of any of those receivers. But the chalk has typically been, nope, that 5-pack of wideouts, and sometimes you can even include A.J. Brown in that grouping, has gone in the top 6, and then you see the two running backs go off the board. And it depends on the day whether I prefer Bijan or Breece Hall, to be honest with you. Both of those guys are, I think, going to have really big seasons. So then the top 8, after that, it gets a little bit less chalky in terms of being able to predict exactly what people are going to do. Garrett Wilson going number 9. Got my phone in my pocket, and I don't like that. Cooper Kupp goes 10. Fascinating. That feels early. But this is why I like drafting with real people, because there are things that can happen that you maybe don't anticipate. Cooper Kupp going before Puka Nacua is definitely very interesting. Derrick Henry. So, I mean, not afraid of veteran players on that team for Wartburg. Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry. And, I mean, both those players could end up being, fix my pants here, could end up being great for fantasy this year. So, more power to you. I typically like the younger players. I think that set up BK for a nice little stack of Wilson and Puka the first 2 rounds, though. So far, so good for that. I like what Cody did on the turn. Jahmyr Gibbs and Marvin Harrison, keeping some positional balance to his roster beginnings and grabbing two young players with some extreme upside. Let's see what the RB drafter Micah does. He took Bijan round 1. TP took Breece Hall and follows it back with Drake London. And we get our lone, or at least our first double RB start with Kyren Williams following the Bijan Robinson pick. I think Barkley is a great pick at 2.7. I think I might have Barkley ahead of all the other running backs selected in this round so far, personally. But, I mean, it's just going to depend on the makeup of your team and a lot of different factors. Now we're seeing the run on running backs really start to hit. Still no quarterbacks, still no tight ends. Interesting spot to be in for sure as the first quarterback goes off the board, and I'm glad to see it. I wasn't sure I'd be able to get this player at this spot in the draft, but to me, Devon Achane is the name that I think at the back of the second feels like a solid value. Running backs being pushed up the boards compared to what I think the ADP says, but there people are starting to recognize you kind of want to leave the first 2 or 3 rounds with an RB1, and then you can attack the wide receiver value later on, potentially. Micah taking 2 running backs says, I'm really going to just believe in the fact that there's a group of maybe a dozen or so running backs that you want, and after that, it gets a little dicey. I could be wrong. Like, the dead zone might not start in round 3. Josh Jacobs, Pacheco, Rachaad White, James Cook, Joe Mixon, you see all the names there on the next up ADP board. those guys could be great this year. But for some reason, when I draft my teams, I'm not looking in that area for running backs. Let me know if I'm crazy. Let me know in the comments in the live chat. All you have to do to subscribe or to join the live chat is subscribe to the channel, and that will allow you to do so. And please drop a like on the stream as well. That helps YouTube think that people are enjoying themselves and we can get this out in front of more people. So if you're in here and you haven't dropped a like, just like the stream if you'd be so kind. Pacheco goes 3.2, the first running back after my Achane pick, and that leads me right back to here where I get another chance to draft. Still Sam Laporta sitting there. Travis Kelce's still sitting there. I know, though, that by the time I get to the back of the fourth, it's going to be a little more dicey in terms of the receivers that are available still. But I want to take a shot on Sam Laporta, so I'm going to do it. I'll go ahead and break the trend of kind of waiting on the tight end position. Unlike last night's draft, when I drafted from the 1.6 when we mocked, I'm a little more susceptible to the positional runs. And if there happens to be one on tight end, that's fine. I'll be the guy that starts it. I'll be curious to see how many tight ends are selected before my pick at 4.10. I'm going to guess it's maybe 2. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but you never know. Because people on the ends on either side of this draft are going to understand it's going to be a while before they get to pick again. I'm going to tidy up my window here. Tidy that up a little bit. There we go. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but I don't mind Sam Laporta. We could take a look quick at his numbers. And he's dealing with a little bit of an injury, dealing with hamstring right now. Again, if we get more injury news before people are really drafting later on this month, then I'll obviously change on what I think about that. But he had 239 PPR points, 120 targets as a rookie. I have no reason to think that's going to go down necessarily. It might be a little early to take him, but it's fun to be able to lock in an elite tight end at the position. I do think this is a year where you could wait and still be okay. You could wait for round 4, round 5, even maybe round 6. Depends on that kind of Ingram to Bowers tier is the cutoff to me. But Jake Ferguson is actually a good option too. I'm not into Njoku. I'm not really one that's drafting many Browns on the Browns passing game. But that doesn't mean I'm right. That's just kind of the way that I've approached things. You have to almost ignore certain things when you're drafting. There are certain teams, there are certain position groups at stages of the draft that you just have to completely ignore. And that allows me to sort of organize my thoughts. I don't know if everybody drafts that way, but it helps when I am able to. Kittle ends up going as the third tight end off the board. Feels a little bit early, but not, I mean, again, you can kind of go from McBride down to Kittle, and I think anybody in that range is reasonable. Malik Neighbors doesn't make it to the 4th round, but he goes with the last pick of the 3rd. And Cody doesn't mind taking upside, and he likes DK Metcalf too. Cody and I often draft rather similarly, and so he's taken a year 2 running back, a couple of rookie wide receivers, and then you go with a veteran in DK Metcalf, a guy who's not over the hill by any means. He's still pretty relatively young, 26, 27 years old. And so you have a guy that still possesses plenty of prime ability at the wide receiver position, but you also have him a little more established than the rookies. So I think that's a nice pairing for Cody there at the turn. We see McBride go off the board. Mahomes is the 3rd quarterback drafted. I think yesterday there was a Mahomes-Kelsey stack that materialized late in the 3rd and early in the 4th. That was kind of fun to see. Don't know how often that's going to be possible, but it happened yesterday. Quay taking Kelsey a little bit earlier today made sure that wasn't going to be a repeat performance there. Still some good tight ends available, but again, it's sometimes you see guys leak into the 5th round, but once the run comes, it feels like it comes quickly, and then you're kind of left wondering, all right, what do I do from here if I missed out on that at tight end? Mike has taken some time with his pick. He's probably going receiver here, but I could see him also jump into the fray at tight end after starting RB. Quarterback, I mean, you're to that point where I think the elite names are off the board, but Lamar Jackson did just win the MVP, and he's also got the rushing upside. So I think Lamar you could tack on to the end of the prior quarterback tier, but then I think there's a bit of a tier break. Anthony Richardson could do Lamar-esque things, but has not done it yet over the course of a full season. He's less proven. So I think you dock Anthony Richardson a little bit compared to Lamar Jackson. Stroud is interesting. Most of what he's going to bring is in that Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow category. He's going to do it with his arm. he's not going to be expected to do it necessarily with his legs. Quay decides to go with Lamar Jackson. I think you'll probably see most of the time after Lamar goes off the board a little bit of a break with quarterbacks, but it remains to be seen. Like if you get Lamar at the back end of the fourth, you're feeling like you got a great value. But if Lamar goes here in the middle of the fourth, anybody that would have been thinking quarterback for the rest of the round might be sort of inclined to wait because they don't feel like intrinsically they're getting as good of a value. Because if you almost could have had Lamar, well, I don't want to then feel like I'm reaching on quarterback and doing it out of desperation with my next pick. And just as I say that, Nolo says, screw you, Brenden. I'm going C.J. Stroud. And there's tremendous upside with Stroud, right? He had a great rookie season. If he's like a top 3 NFL quarterback talent, and we find that out this year, with the weapons that exist in Houston's passing game, nobody's going to be regretting taking Stroud. But I basically talked in a circle for 30 seconds about how I didn't think that pick was coming, and you made it anyway, which more power to you. Like, you got to get your guy, and Stroud wasn't making it back to 5.5, so you might as well go with it. I like seeing Kincaid go right before me when I already have my tight end, which allows me to probably settle in for a receiver here, but I am interested in the fact that we haven't seen a single running back go since 3.2 Pacheco. Like at this stage, Rachaad White, probably a really good value. Josh Jacobs, probably a strong value. Both Team 1 and Team 2 have a running back already. And as I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, maybe one of those guys ends up dropping back to me if I want to take another leap of faith. And I'm like a Rachaad White or Josh Jacobs in round 5. Now that feels like a better value. But I do like the receivers in this range. I don't want to get eaten alive at the turn by not being able to get one of Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, or some of the options that are behind him here. And so I am going to be inclined. There's another name that I like, but let's take Zay Flowers, right? I don't have a Baltimore player. Let's take Zay Flowers here. I don't know if that would be my pick in a real draft, but I've only got one wide receiver. I went early tight end, and so as a result, I want to make sure to lock one in. And I think Zay Flowers has a combination of, we've seen it a little bit from him, but still very young with upside. Pair him in that Lamar Jackson offense. I want to look inherently. I couldn't tell you how many points he scored last year, and that's probably a problem. Only 206 PPR points, but I mean that's still a pretty good mark. All right, my stupidity covered up the screen. Tank Dell is another guy I was considering at that last pick. I love seeing. Look, when I'm not inclined to pick a quarterback yet, I love seeing Richardson and Andrews off the board consecutively because that just means more of my potential targets make it back to me. I'm feeling a little bit silly that I did that Laporta thing because Kyle Pitts is still here. That might be my pick in another lifetime. I could have gone Jalen Waddle. I could have really reached on a Malik Neighbors, but I just kind of figured I wouldn't have Neighbors in this league, in this draft, because of where I am on the board. I almost did it on purpose to kind of give myself a different look. I'm not a huge Rachaad White fan, but he's a good pick at this range. Ken Walker, I don't have any Seahawks. Ken Walker might be a guy that I would have to consider at this spot, but I'm actually going to scroll down because I know he doesn't get back to me. It won't be another week before Rashee Rice is listed a lot higher on Sleeper. In the fifth round, I think that's a pretty good pick. I considered it when I selected Zay Flowers, but there is always that risk of he does get suspended, and then you're thinking, my wide receiver 2 is suspended. I don't have an answer for that position. And then if the turn would have gone Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, I would have been looking up, and none of my options that I was relying upon would have been there. So that's why I did it in the order that I did it. But I think Rice is a really good pick in the early 5th. And I think by the time September 1st gets here, he won't be available in the 5th round anymore. And all it's going to take is Sleeper bumping him up the way that a lot of like in best ball on DraftKings, I know he's like in the 40s. And even that might not be high enough. So Rashee Rice is my pick there. Until we hear about a suspension, I'm shifting my strategy to basically say he's viable, right? I don't know if is he going to be better than Xavier Worthy? Is the return of Hollywood Brown going to turn Rashee Rice to dust? I don't know the answers to those questions, but I think to have a piece of the Chiefs passing offense, that's probably what you want. Higgins is a great pick this late. I should have considered him. I don't know why I can't bring myself to do it. Although double stacking is not a thing I like. I gave Quay some credit, and then I saw he had Jamar Chase. I did that before, that exact thing, and it's like Higgins misses too many games for my taste. Even when it feels like he's not dealing with a major injury, it's always a question, and it got to be too much of a headache for me. But that is very anecdotal. Don't draft because of me saying that. You kind of have to get a feel for what you like. But it gets a little bit, in just a redraft league, gets a little bit top heavy where you're like, well, now I have to have Cincinnati have a great game if they have a bad one. But, I mean, there are a lot of offenses that you would want multiple pieces of, and that would be one of them. I think T. Higgins, if he stays healthy, could be great this year. I just, for some reason, have not had the stones to draft him in these mocks. But I like where we're at right now. Like Flowers, I like him. Dell, I think Rice, the more I thought about it, probably should have been my 4.10, and then I would have just had to deal with what fell, because Higgins I could have picked Higgins, and I honestly could have taken Ken Walker. I like Ken Walker. I don't know why he's as deep as he is in this draft. I think he's a good round 4 name, but maybe if everybody in this room, if I'm like talking to them as they're drafting and I'm filling their brain with information that's causing them to change their decisions, I guess that could always happen. But I don't know that they're all listening to me, nor should they even pay attention to what I say. I don't know anything either. But nobody drafted a running back in round 4, which feels kind of like what you could see. Everybody wants to eat up the wide receivers in that range, and there's a lot of good ones. I like Smith. I like DJ Moore, Pittman. All these guys I would have considered. I would have hoped to have seen one of Pittman, Moore, Smith, and Metcalf drop to me in the 4th, and they didn't. So I just moved down my board a little bit more and took Zay Flowers. Going early tight end, though, like this is going to be a good example for folks who are watching my draft, and you should be watching the whole board because you can learn from what other people are doing for sure. I'm going to close out my team for a little bit so y'all can just see the board as it is. Kind of one of the things that I am going to be able to demonstrate is what happens to your roster when you go early tight end. Can you be as robust as you want to be at the other positions by taking an early third round pick, that's a premium pick, and using it on a tight end? The reason I feel like I do that is because for whatever reason, and I've talked about this before, the names in like the late 3rd, 4th round at wide receiver per ADP, I like them better than Diggs, Evans, and Nico Collins. So, and probably better than Debo, which there's no reason for that. Sometimes, like I said, I just ignore certain names. It's not that I'm going to not take Debo if he's at a value, but I'm usually looking at somebody else in that range. So I don't mind doing it with Laporta if it's an early to mid 3rd rounder, because the wide receiver run begins, but I'm not actually interested in jumping on the train until kind of back end of the 3rd. So that's where I feel like I'm gaining, especially if I can get the tail end of it. Like I do consider maybe the Pittman spot to be where there's a tier break, and I just jumped right into the next tier with Zay Flowers, just, didn't even worry about it. Christian Kirk, by the way, is a great pick in the 6th. He's somebody else that I honestly could have considered all the way back here in the 4-5 turn. But that's just sort of what I mean is we're going to see what that does to a roster to go early tight end. And other people have gone early tight end and early QB, as I misclick once again. And that makes you more lean than I usually want to be. But it works for some people. And whatever has you comfortable, well, that's what you should do. Appreciate you guys who are tuned in live watching us. Make sure to hit a like on this. We've got 3 likes on the stream. We've got more than that in terms of the concurrent viewers. It says we've got 33 people tuned in, so I appreciate y'all. Eric is scratching out my advice. Oh, no. Joe Mixon, from what I've seen, is undervalued. He's going to be big with that Texans O-line. And Stroud, they want to run the ball a lot. I don't trust him. I'm not right about it, but I just ignore certain people. And I feel like Joe Mixon is a guy in that range that I'm just ignoring, and it doesn't make me right. In fact, I'm probably not. But it allows me to just hyper-fixate on the names in a given tier that I do want to fixate on and focus on and make sure I'm not missing anything. If I focus on too many things while I draft, I'm going to miss something. And I really want to be prepared enough to know that I'm not going to miss something. So come draft day, if Joe Mixon's sitting there for me, he's not even a consideration. I won't pick him. Not because he's not, at the back of the 5th, I think he's a great value, but I can't be the one to take him. I love Worthy going right before me because since I took Rice, I wouldn't have taken Worthy anyway. And I have a Dunze and Worthy ranked next to each other, so it made my decision easy. I would have been I would have been bummed if a Dunze had gone instead of Worthy because I wasn't taking Worthy anyway. I don't like to double up as much. I'll do it if the value is there and I just say, F it. But I like that I was able to get a Dunze, and I'm still, I've got different teams. We don't have any double ups. We're looking okay in terms of balance now. Achane is our true hero in the RB room. We're not really too concerned about the fact that we haven't drafted another one. If Swift had been there in the back of the sixth, I might have considered it. Najee now with the injury to Jaylen Warren is probably a fair pick at the back of the sixth as well. I should have looked his direction. I just can't bring myself to do it. I wanted the rookie. I wanted the fun toy. And so I drafted Rome Odunze. That's how I play. I'm not saying it's right, but that's how I play. Could go with a Kyler Murray here. This feels like a fair range to take Kyler Murray. I like him above Burrow and Prescott unless it is, and I try to talk about this in every mock I do, unless it is a 6-point passing TD league, because then you give a boost to Burrow and Dak because they'll throw more touchdowns probably than Kyler, but Kyler's going to run. So that's where I kind of split off. But I had a lot of fun actually yesterday just punting completely on quarterback and waiting until the bitter end. So I might do that again today. I've only got 20 seconds left to look through guys like Addison, Lad McConkey, Smith and Jigba. I would be adding to my bench at that point. I guess I should consider a running back. But now I feel myself getting a little bit squirmy. So I'm just going to take Kyler. When you're under 10 seconds, and this is great. I feel like this is great advice. When you're under 10 seconds and you feel like, all right, things sped up on me, I wasn't prepared, just pick the name you were looking at anyway. I was looking for somebody to take instead of Kyler. And as the 7th round unfolds, I'm going to see a name where I go, yeah, that was the guy, but I was a little bit ill-prepared. I was feeling flustered. I was under 10 seconds. I heard the click, 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 click. Just take Kyler Murray because I know I like him. I know that it solves a roster spot where now I don't have to think about that anymore. Yeah, there's probably, it kind of sucks that happened right before the long snake around where I'm going to have a hard time maybe getting some of my targets to come back to me. But let's just hope it works out. That's all you can do. But I didn't want to panic. I didn't have, you should have multiple screens, by the way, doing this. I'm doing this all from one monitor on my laptop. I should have another one while streaming for sure. But I should have probably been able to see the 10 seconds and exactly how much time I had left while scrolling through. But also, I'm not going to be streaming when I'm doing a real league draft. So it's not the end of the world that I kind of got a little bit flustered. But it's a good example of, hey, when that happens and you feel like that moment clicks and the panic sets in and you're like, shoot, what do I do? Click the player that you know where he is, and you should have a queue. I don't have a queue set up because I don't want to I always use a queue, but while I'm streaming, I don't want anybody else to see like who I'm looking at. Maybe I'll get over that at a certain point. Maybe once I start making any revenue from these live streams, I will then I'll feel like it's fine to actually have a queue because it's less about me being competitive in the stream and more just about like entertaining and being able to give insight. But for now, I'll keep it without a queue. Yeah, I need 1,000 subscribers, and then I'll be able to join the YouTube Partner Program. Clay, what's up, brother? Lil Colt, I don't know if I'll be doing another one directly after this or not. Depends on how long this one goes. Maybe I will do another one, though. We'll do 30-second clock on the picks, if that sounds fair. Send me a DM right now on Twitter, at bschaefer12, if you didn't get in this one, but you want to draft in the next one. Send me a DM. It's at bschaefer12 on Twitter. And I will check those DMs before starting the next mock. That way, people will be able to join it. And I can probably keep it one concurrent stream too, and then maybe split them up when I repost them on YouTube tomorrow. Back to the content though. Addison in the early 8th feels like a nice little value. I was thinking about him all the way back at 7.3, but that's the click I didn't want to make. Is like, okay, which wide receiver of all these good ones that I like in this range am I going to be taking? I don't have a lot of room on my screen to scroll down, so I just took Kyler. But, like, Ridley's not really a huge target. I like McConkey. It depends on where you're taking him. Always love a rookie, so Coleman's interesting for sure. Addison, Christian Watson. Love that stack by Cody. He picked up Jordan Love and then was able to immediately stack on the turn. Brian Thomas, he goes in the middle of the 8th. That's a good value, I think, for him. I don't know if he's going to be high on the depth chart for the Jags, but if he is and he's a rookie, he could be great. You know, was kind of the forgotten guy in the LSU offense last year when you think about how much, great great love for Malik Neighbors everybody has. Hey, Nolo, I wasn't trying to dog you for picking Stroud either. He's great. I just, from like a value standpoint, I was thinking I was going to wait on quarterback. But then lo and behold, I take one in the 7th. So I didn't wait that long. Jake Ferguson, he's a tight end for Nolo. I think that was a good pick at this stage too because he needed one. Quay, I don't know who you fat-fingered, but you do have a lot of running backs now. See, sometimes it happens to the best of us. You can panic, and I didn't want that to happen to me. Only one quarterback has gone since my Kyler pick. I probably should have waited, and I might have been able to have Kyler, but maybe I was the reason that there wasn't a quarterback run because Kyler was the one that everybody else wanted too. Like, you're never going to know that. So just go with your gut. And if you're watching live, if you're watching on replay, please do subscribe to the channel and watch all of our content the rest of the month. I'm going to be hitting it hard. I'm going to be doing some comparisons between, like, the list. It's not ADP, but it's like the X rank on Yahoo. Some guys are listed way too high. Some guys are listed way too low. If you're drafting on Yahoo, it can be valuable to know relative to other platforms. Like, this is a Yahoo guy versus this is a guy on Sleeper you can get because he's listed lower. Sleeper does it by ADP, which makes sense, but Yahoo just does whatever it wants. And so does ESPN. It's a zoo. It is an absolute zoo. Okay, it's my turn. I only need a running back too. Javonte, I would have considered, but he's gone. Jaylen Warren, I would have considered, but he's ouchie. Jonathan Brooks, I would like as an RB3, but my roster is not set up for that. So let's stop looking at running backs because we all know I'm taking a receiver. JSN, Jameson Williams, Romeo Dobbs. I always could consider Tyler Lockett, but it's actually probably between JMO and JSN. Do I have any other Seahawks? Do I have any Lions? Let's take JSN this time. I could go either way on those two, but we'll go Smith and Jigba. Hollywood in the back of the 8th is a good pick. Again, not one I was going to make because I already have the other Chief that I selected, Rashee Rice. But look, if you know, Big E I know is a good fantasy player. So if Hollywood comes back in week 6 and he's 3-2, and then Hollywood ends up being the more favored target over Rashee Rice at that point, well, that's a much better pick because Big E knows he's making the playoffs in this league. So he's going to plan a little bit toward the end of the season. And when you look at his roster, you know, he's already got some running backs in his flex. He's handled QB. He's handled tight end. So that's a luxury pick of Hollywood Brown. And you get to throw him on your IR slot. That's something that I don't think people utilize enough. Don't be afraid to draft an injured player in the 7th or 8th round. Doing it in like the first few rounds can be a little bit scary because those are premium picks. But if you're already talking about a bench spot anyway, and you know your league has IR, why wouldn't you want to basically give yourself the chance to have an extra player on your team? You get to play waivers before anybody else does. That can be fun. So I like that pick of Hollywood this late. Looking elsewhere at some of the names that have been drafted, do I spot any obvious injuries? Like when Jaylen Warren comes off, we'll see if he's ready week 1, but he could apply there. There's some other names that could certainly be applicable as far as that strategy goes. And second QB, Burrow goes to Big E. Big E is just going all luxury picks right now. JMO actually makes it back to me. I could really start stacking my bench with receivers if I wanted to. Get a piece of that Lions offense that I hold so dearly. But I am actually going to go luxury pick on Jonathan Brooks. Like, yes, I could have taken another running back. It's not a luxury pick because of the fact that I still don't have an RB2. But now I don't care who my RB2 is because after a month, my plan will be Jonathan Brooks, and he could be an RB1. He could be a top 12 running back this year. We just don't know. Anytime you have a rookie, if the Panthers decide he's going to be a workhorse, then, yeah, I lucked into something. So I'm just going to take the plunge and do it because, like, Warren would be the pick if I knew he was still healthy because then I can plug him in for RB2. But in week 14, would I rather have Brooks or would I rather have Jaylen Warren? I think I want Brooks because he's a rookie that's going to get more trusted and more workload as the season goes. And yes, he's coming off of an ACL injury, so we don't know. Maybe I end up not ever getting to use him. Maybe he's on my IR. I get to pick up somebody for free, and I can play the waiver game for my RB2 for a little bit if I have to. That does not bother me. And we do already have a good wide receiver on our bench that I really like who has upside. So I think this is going pretty well. Kyler, is a quarterback that anytime I'm drafting a quarterback or a tight end relatively early, I want it to be somebody that I believe has top 5 upside at the position. I think Kyler has that. I think Sam Laporta obviously has that at tight end. Achane, I think, has upside to be one of the best running backs in fantasy this year. He might get hurt. Anything can happen. But I like Achane's explosiveness. CeeDee Lamb, love having him on my team. And then, I mean, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Adunze, Smith, and Jigba. I only need, like, one of those guys could flame out, and I'm still filled in my lineup. So we like that. Jamison Williams, you know, that's a tough one to see him go, but I went the way that I went. I want to see what it looks like if I have a Jonathan Brooks bullet to play come week 5 or 6, and that's not something that I've really done a lot in mocks. So, like, I'm combining different strategies, right? What have I done so far? Early tight end, because we took Laporta, and take a player who's injured, and he's going to be sitting in my RB2 spot, even though I know he's not going to be there for a month. Like, those are strategies that you can find out now if it's viable. Caleb Williams goes in the 9th. I think that's probably better than whatever it was yesterday that I took him. He went in like the 11th round yesterday. We were playing chicken with each other, me and a few other people. Didn't take a quarterback, didn't take one, so I kept not taking it until I did. But 9th is a little more kosher for his ADP, I think. Jaylen Warren does go in the back of the 9th here. It's a good pick. And look, let's take a look at TP's roster here. We'll highlight it. Because he's kind of going with that same hero RB strategy that I've taken. He has taken the grabbing wide receivers concept to the very next level, though. But Breece Hall is going to be one of the top running backs in fantasy if healthy. Jaylen Warren's his RB2. He's cool with everything that's going on there. London, Waddle, DJ Moore, Kirk are in his lineup. Rookie with upside is on his bench. Deontay Johnson, in a new situation, a good player, proven, established player on his bench. That's a ton of wide receiver depth. Now, while like, let's take BK Langston's team, for instance. Connor, Montgomery, Mostert, to me, screams that one of the three is getting hurt in the first couple of weeks. I could be wrong. We're just guessing. But running backs tend to have injuries more than receivers do. Receivers will have it anecdotally, of course. But then I also noticed, okay, well, BK went 0 RB, so it's fine. He didn't spend premium picks on these guys. He's got the wide receivers he needs to be great, as well as the tight end he needs to be great. And he drafted one of my favorite late-round quarterback targets in the 9th to have the upside that might be matched with Lamar Jackson or Anthony Richardson in the 4th round. And he gets him in the 9th. So he's doing it right. I wasn't trying to pick on him, but just those players in particular, older running backs like Connor and Mostert, kind of struck me as, okay, you could be seeing an injury at some point. If I see an injury to my running backs, it's Achane, right? And that sucks because he was a second rounder. But after that, it's like, whatever. I picked him in the 10th plus round. And then, while everybody else is scrambling for waivers because they're going to try to pick up the backup running back to the injured guy, I'm going to be doing the same thing. It will be luxury for me if I get that waiver claim or if I get that fab bid to go through. I won't need it because I won't have lost my running back. I will have. It's almost a position of strength to admit that your RB2 sucks week 1, 2, 3, so you don't care if he goes down to injury. It didn't cost yourself anything. If my receivers start going down, well, that kills me. But that would be true regardless. So I intentionally craft my roster for my RB2 to be junk. And in this case, it's only going to be junk for the first 4-6 weeks because once I get Jonathan Brooks healthy, suddenly my RB2 is a guy that, if he was not coming off of an ACL, probably would have been going in round 4, round 5. He would have been considered like a hot sleeper to be a fantasy league winner, right? Well, he still should be. Because if he's great, we're going to find that out. Coming off an ACL, league winner is probably too heavy of a term. But in the 9th round, again, I get it that I prioritized a bench spot above my RB2, but I did it on purpose. We'll see how it plays out. I definitely do still need some RB help. Hit like on the stream, guys. We got 37 people watching. I'll go into the comments here after I make my next pick. I'll check out the YouTube live chat a little bit more. We do have super chats available on this channel, but until I get it truly monetized in terms of YouTube Partner Program, 1,000 subs, I'm not really too worried about talking about all that. But if you have a question I really need to see, there's not that many comments, so I'll get to everybody. I wouldn't worry about it. Cortland Sutton goes, and now it's my turn. I should just take Tyler Lockett. If I had gone JMO instead of JSN here, I would take Tyler Lockett in the 10th just because I'm wearing his shirt. But I don't really need to. I could take a receiver, though. But it would probably be one of the younger, more upside-y kind of guys. Like, I'm going to be a little more lean at receiver in this draft. I know that sounds crazy because I've got 5, but I usually am drafting even more aggressively at receiver. So, that's okay. We feel like all of our other positions are really handled well. So we don't mind where we're at by any means. Kind of going through my mind here. I've got 20 seconds left. I know I need a running back. Let's take Jerome Ford. I'm going to miss out on some of the guys that I feel like I need. But let's take Jerome Ford because he is the week 1 RB2 that I'm looking for this roster, right? I'm going to plug him right in. Whether Chubb plays or not, Jerome Ford's going to see touches in week 1. He's going to get 10 to 12 to 14 touches. And let's say 8 to 12 to 14. Enough to where he could be my RB2, and then Brooks hopefully comes in middle of the season and supplants him, and that ends up working out. I want a 6 wide receiver that I love, and I may not end up with it in this draft, but I love that right now I can really start to focus on just running back and receiver because I've got the tight end 1, at least in terms of draft capital, and a quarterback that I really do trust. I considered running back-wise maybe going, well, I'll wait to see if Big E takes him. He takes Lockett from me, and I probably was going to take Lockett coming back. So, good pick. Charbonnet was the other running back that I was thinking about. I like him for PPR, but I am high on Ken Walker this year, so I'm not really super enthused by trying to draft Charbonnet if I'm not really betting on him. Xavier Legette, we could go that route. We could take a second Panther. When it comes to bench names, I'll double up, and I don't really care as much about that. There's some other receivers down the board that are interesting. Cooks, Judy, Rashid Shaheed, Wicks I like. I keep saying I like Wicks and I don't end up with him. Darnell Mooney might play a ton for his team, so that's somebody you probably should at least be aware of. Like I said, I might not end up with another receiver that I love, but let's give myself some, well, shoot, man. I kind of ended up without a pick I loved there. There was another running back I was thinking of taking, and I don't think will drop back to me, but that's okay because there should be some other later running backs I can fill things out with. Like I could have gone Charbonnet, but my whole point that I just was speaking about is I don't want to be too heavy at running back. I want to have 3, maybe 4, probably 4, especially since I know that one of my running backs is going to be on the shelf for a while. Let's give you guys the full look at the draft board here. So I could have gone Charbonnet there, and he is honestly, if you're thinking about running backs, a good PPR target, but I don't. If I've got 2 of them that can be in my lineup, I'm kind of good until I get to a really like last gasp flyer at RB. So that's why I didn't go Charbonnet there. I don't want to be balanced. I want to be overly bloated with wide receivers. And so I took Legette. He's a rookie. That's the reason. If I'm like, I could go Shaheed for sure off my bench. I could go like a Josh Palmer. These are guys that are, and I know he was picked in the prior round, but he's another guy that I think is a little bit buried on ADP because like Shaheed, Josh Palmer is going to be in the starting lineup. He's going to play for his team, for his NFL team. I don't know if he's going to be great for fantasy. Jerry Jeudy, you could say the same thing about him. He's going to play for Cleveland, but is he going to be great? I don't know. Jacoby Myers, same thing. He's going to play. Shakir, this round, why did I say it like that? This range of Shakir onto Jeudy is kind of all guys that are the same thing. Except for Lockett because he's spotless in my mind and he's perfect. But everybody else is like, you're going to be a wide receiver 2 for your team, but are you any good? And you're kind of older. You're not a rookie. So we kind of feel like we know what you are, but now you're being thrust into a new role. I tend to not draft those guys. But if you're looking at the roles, like Shaheed maybe is the one where if you trust Derek Carr, he's actually probably pretty worthwhile to pick because he's not older. And I think he's a better value than Legette. Well, I mean, he's 25. But Legette is a rookie, and he's a freak athlete. 6'3", 227 is how he's listed. I'm just going to take the freak athlete rookie because if he turns into like Terrace Marshall Jr. for that same team, I drop him because it's an 11th round pick. Who cares? If he's able to hit on what the Panthers saw when they drafted him, he's going to be a problem for fantasy. And I want problems like that on my bench because I can pair him with Jerome Ford and trade him for Ken Walker when I need to, or trade him for Rashad White, or trade him for James Cook, or Joe Mixon, or Jacobs, or whatever. Can I do that automatically? No. Everybody that has those players is like, I'm not doing that trade with you. Things happen during the season. Injuries will cause rosters to look a different way, and then suddenly people might be more inclined. If somebody loses their wide receiver and they didn't prioritize the position enough, and Leggett looks like the breakout player, I'm not saying he's going to, but if he did, and Jerome Ford looks like a ho-hum, steady 10 to 12 PPR points, and he'll fall into the end zone because Nick Chubb's, knee didn't recover, then there are people who would probably do that trade. Not week one, but it could happen later. And that's the thing about when I make these trades and people are like, how did you pull this trade off? I'm not trying to swindle people. I'm looking at what they need versus what I want. Ideally, I'm always trading with somebody who needs something rather than wants something. That goes off the rails when I just get bored and want to be trading a bunch during the season. That happens too. But like that, trades are made from two teams that need certain things or want certain things. And boredom. That's the third thing that trades are certainly made from. Make sure to hit like, guys. We're up to 13 likes. I appreciate everybody who's done that so far. Kyle said he left Lockett for me. And, but then Big E swooped in. It's the JSN thing. I had no reason to pass on Lockett. When I get into a real league, if Lockett's sitting there and I know he can be on my fantasy team, maybe for the last year, because who knows how many more years he's got, you can definitely bet that I will be clicking Tyler Lockett's name. But this time I was like, I already took JSN. Nick says, I have Kyler, MVH, and McBride. How bad did I screw up? Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I think that could be really fun. Okay, the running back did make it back to me. It's Jalen Wright. Let me talk to you about why I don't normally handcuff, but Jalen Wright is the one example of a handcuff I will draft if I have Devon Achane. Or Mostert, I suppose. Because one of Achane or Mostert's going to get hurt, and when that happens, Jalen Wright, I saw him at Tennessee watching Mizzou. Jalen Wright is tailor-made for that Dolphins rushing attack. So I will handcuff my own running back in the draft. That's the one time I think all year I'll do it. Like, I probably don't even do it with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. I don't do it with, I'm not grabbing Charbonnet because I have Ken Walker. The one example that has an offense with such tremendous rushing upside in Miami that I'm like, if I lose Achane, I'm so screwed with the way I drafted. I do want to draft Jalen Wright just in case, because I think he is the plug and play if Achane goes down. They'll lean more on Mostert than they will just say, Jalen Wright jumps right into that role, but Wright will get enough touches, and I think he's explosive enough that it'll work out. So that's what I did, and I don't regret it one bit. Pat Freiermuth probably should not be available in the last round of a fantasy draft, even though I have a tight end. Taysom Hill, I think, is also interesting. So those two guys I'm kind of looking at, thinking about. Any other receivers? I don't know why I have a star by Darnell Mooney, but he fits into that Jacoby Myers, Shaheed, Jerry Jeudy, Curtis Samuel, Shakir kind of conversation 2 rounds later. So, I mean, there is something to be said for Darnell Mooney. And because I didn't get Tyler Lockett, I won't. I was going to draft Adam Thielen, but then I was like, no, wait, I already did Leggett. I've drafted the 2 young receivers in those offenses, right? So I've kind of staked my claim elsewhere. I missed on what I want to do. We'll just click Brandon Cooks. I kind of panicked. I was going to scroll at some of these running backs. Ty Chandler is a little fun for PPR. Tracy, Ray Davis could be fun. Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen. Those are some of the running backs that are like, if you just have a last-round pick and you feel like Khalil Herbert is another one, and you feel like you just don't have enough at running back, that would probably be what I should have done. But also, the Cowboys are going to have to throw the ball to people besides CeeDee Lamb. I know Brandon Cooks leaves practice early. That's probably that Cooks pick is one that I probably have already. The day the draft goes, I've already found the guy on waivers that I want to replace with that Cooks pick. So that's the one pick that I think was kind of silly. I forgot I had Lamb, be honest with you. And so that was just like, whatever. Bijan and Algier fit into it. Micah has a point there. And, like, I guess if you have Breece Hall, you might feel like Braylon Allen. But do we know for sure Braylon Allen is – maybe after week 1, if they use Allen a bunch and he looks good, then people might say, all right, I might need to have that as my handcuff if I have Breece. But that's fair. Algier with Bijan, I think, is fair. Was Algier taken in this draft or not? Oh, you just did in the last pick. Okay. That would be fair. As long as it's a last-round pick, I think that's fine. Jalen Wright is getting more expensive than he's worth. But if I drafted Devon Achane, I probably do want it. So I'll give you that. Yep. Algier is a fair last round. Actually, is a smart last round pick. I'm going to amend my statement specifically because of Micah here. I think that's another one where it does make sense to handcuff. Those might be the only two. Looking at some of these guys up here, like well, obviously with McCaffrey, you want Cody Schrader as your last pick. I did not see what Cody Schrader did or didn't do tonight, if he has been good or not for the Niners. I know he started because they had a lot of injuries. But I'm going to go ahead and close out my roster just so everybody can look at as much of the draft board as we can see at a time. Actually, let's try to make it a little smaller. Try to see as much of it as we can. At least get you through the first 12 rounds. The Niners beat the Saints 16-10. We're looking player stats real quick. Schrader was 7 for 15. Yeah, that probably doesn't get the job done, unfortunately. I needed him to break one. Taking a look at some of these teams, though, who stands out to you? Who's your favorite roster? I like mine. Lamb, Flowers, Rice, Adunze, JSN, and Leggett are my receivers. We feel like we have upside. We've got enough. We've got an anchor with Lamb. Running backs, Achane, Ford are my 2 running backs week 1. I have handcuffed Achane with Wright. So if Achane gets hurt, I don't need to hit waivers. I'm fine. Wright is somebody that I would have to start at that point. And then Brooks comes back and he gives me upside. But when all these other running backs are getting hurt, I cross my fingers that mine don't because I only took 1 RB in the first 8 rounds. And the 9th round RB I took is already hurt, so he can't get hurt again. I guess he could. But I'll be looking to pick up the backups that, that are on waivers, and maybe I strike gold, and suddenly I've got a starting running back, and I'm way better at wide receiver than some of the other teams. Like, on paper. Obviously, I could have drafted poorly, but, like, just comparing my situation to Micah, Micah's got Collins and Pittman, 2 guys who could be great for sure. Allen is, okay, you are trading on what he used to be. He's in a new offense. Could he be good? They've got 3 wide receivers there to feed. Maybe he's better than Adunze. He drafted him before Adunze, so we'll see. But then Brian Thomas, that's only his 4th. Like, my JSN is kind of akin to his Brian Thomas, pretty close in ranking, and that's my 5th. So that's where I feel like I might have the edge on somebody. But Micah knows what he's doing when it comes to fantasy. I played leagues with him before. So it's interesting. I'm going to check out the comments here one more time, make sure I haven't missed anything. Just like it up. I went with the same strategy. I have Breeze, but nervous about RB2. Grabbed a few. Warren, Eckler, Zeke. Yep, those are the type of guys to grab. I think Hero RB is a good one this year. Kevin wanted to know my thoughts on Hollywood Brown. I think he was a value in this draft where he went in the 8th, but I tend to like the others more. I like Rashee Rice, and I like Xavier Worthy even for sure above Hollywood. Even if healthy, I think I would have maybe felt that way because there's upside there. Eric says Dell is going to get a lot of 120-yard, 1 TD games. Yeah, and I think the match with Stroud is really tremendous for him. I think they have a good chemistry. Trevor says he's picked 9 out of 12 and all Eagles fans. I want the Brown Hurts stack. Scared Hurts will go in the 3rd before me in my league, so would it be crazy to pick him in the 2nd? I think it would be a big reach to pick him in the 2nd because you're early. If you're the 9th pick, that means you're the 4th pick of the 2nd round. With Eagles fans, though, like if you're just dead set on it, do your dreams, Trevor. But I would not do it because I actually think Hurts takes a little bit of a step back this year. And with a bunch of Eagles fans, nobody will want to hear that. But I think without Jason Kelce, it is going to be harder. I just inherently think that it's going to be harder. You're not going to have the tush-push with the same automatic degree of success. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen this year. So he'll be great for fantasy, but I like him better where he's going. he goes 311 in this draft, yes, he'll probably be gone before you. So if you're dead set on wanting the stack, just do it and make sure you draft a lot of good wide receivers thereafter, right? And running backs and stuff like that. I never care about running backs, though. They just don't matter. But I grabbed one. HN was a good value when I took him. Laporta, Kyler, I like this team. I would play this team out. I would not be upset about my draft in any way, shape, or form. I think it's easier to draft from the front end of the turn anyway, so that's what ended up happening here. Make sure you like the stream before you get out of here, guys. As far as doing another one, I might have to bag on it for tonight. I know I did say, but Lil Colt is who had asked if I was doing another one after this. I am kind of still sick today, so I probably need to make sure to I just sent you, Colt. I just DM'd you on Twitter. I'll talk with you. I will make sure that Lil Colt knows the next time I'm doing one of these. Hopefully tomorrow night. Cardinals baseball is my main job. They're off tomorrow night, so I should be able to run it back probably around 10 o'clock tomorrow on Monday. But if you want to be around for the next live stream, it'll go the way that it did tonight. I'll post the stream. I'll post the sleeper link in the description to the video, and then just kind of first come, first serve. I think we will start to go with 30-second clocks on these, though, so that maybe I could do 2 in one night and get more people involved. Last night there just wasn't as much interest, and tonight it filled right away. So I think this is something that can end up being pretty cool as far as a fantasy channel. Please do hit that subscribe button. I would love, 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 love to get to 1,000 within the next few days so that we can start to do some other types of videos that I want to do, and I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. That'll do it for the stream, though. Subscribe, check out. I've done a lot of videos on the channel from your specific draft spot. If you're drafting from the 6, I've got videos on that. If you're drafting from the 2, I've got videos on that. If I haven't done your slot yet, post a comment on the channel on one of the videos, request it, and I'll make sure to do it soon. But that'll do it for this stream. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.